What is going on, YouTube people? Today, we are going to revisit the old Vegas vending machine, the old slab machine out in Vegas. If you don't remember what I'm talking about, did a couple videos on this probably about a month or two ago. I think that it was. There was the vending machine thing that popped up in Vegas that had a big PSA logo on it. It was basically a repack machine. And there was a bunch of controversy. Was it PSAs? Was it not PSAs? It was very quickly found out that it was a partner of PSAs. PSA had nothing to do with owning and operating the machine, other than the people that ran it graded their cards with PSA, probably as a bulk submitter or something around like that. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Potentially the people running this thing, Sports Card Radio, did some videos on this. With the people that were involved with this machine, might not necessarily be the best folks in the hobby. Well, this is a fun one circling around Twitter. The machine does still exist. A lot of the PSA branding has been removed, but someone went there, and this is now, this changed a couple of weeks ago. I remember seeing stuff about this. It's $100 for a multi-sport pack. So $100 for a spin of the slot machine. That's what I'm going to call it, because that's basically what this thing is. This person went there and put $800 in, at least. There might have been a couple other ones, but did $800 of spins on the repack machine. These are the hits. And I should mention, this is the Silky Goose on the X machine, on the old Twitter machine. Is the one who did this little experiment for us, so we don't have to. These are his 8. I'm not even going to use the word hits, because that is a drastically overstatement on this. I have a little bit better photo here where we could zoom in. So let's run through these. We have, remember, $100 a pack. We have a 2022 Donruss base Patrick Mahomes. We have a 2022 Donruss Hollow Laser Pat Connaughton. Yes, Pat Connaughton. Derek White base optic rated rookie. A Jalen Green base rated rookie out of optic. A Cam Reddish base Donruss. PSA, all these are PSA 10. A Landry Shamet Genesis. The hits just keep on coming, folks. You think they'd at least throw us a bowl. A awesome NBA player at his time and coach, Lenny Wilkins. PSA 10 fast break signatures. And a Paolo Banchero Prism Monopoly. Not even regular Prism Monopoly. In a PSA 10. $800. That's what it netted you out. You might as well rip a box of Prism basketball for that price, because you're probably going to get smoked just as bad. I thought the point of repacks, generally speaking, is that it makes you feel good after opening it. Not so much with this one. And let's, one thing I did before we kind of take this conversation to the next step, is I comped these out as best as I could. Some of these have no sales, because they just, I don't think most people would think to grade some of these cards. Looking at you, Pat Connaughton. No offense. I will let you guess below in the comments. What do you think this pile of cards comps out at, roughly speaking? Because like I said, I could not use perfect numbers here, because a few of these did not have graded comps. So I took best guesses as much as possible. So go ahead and throw your guess down below. I will give you all a few seconds for that. Pause the video if you need to. The grand total that I got was a little over $200. How did I arrive at that? The Patrick Mahomes goes for about $45 to $50. There was a couple sales on that. The Pat Connaughton Hollow Laser, I put in at $20. I had a tricky time comping that one. Derek White sells fairly regularly. That one goes for about $40. The Jalen Green goes for about $20. The Cam Reddish, the big winner of the group, goes for about $6. Talk about profits. $6 comp, and you hold it for $100. The Landry Shamet, I could not get a good comp on. I put $20 down because I found a TJ Warren PSA 10 that sold for about $20, and that seemed equivalent enough for me. This card raw sells for a couple of dollars, so I can't imagine the PSA 10 adds a ton to it. The Lenny Wilkins, another tricky one. No PSA 10 sales of this card. There was a couple raws at around $9, $8 or $9. I went ahead and put this one in at 25. I guess maybe you could call it 30 or 35 if you really wanted to. And then the Palo Monopoly, that one had a few sales as well at around $25. You can give or take a couple bucks either way on most of these. So that comes out to be, roughly speaking, a little over $200. About $206, I think, is what I had. But let's be generous and call it $225. Ouch. Ouch. And this is ultimately the problem on this style of repack. You have no idea what you're getting. You don't even know what the chase card is because there is no checklist associated with this. You are completely flying blind. If you're wondering where a bunch of those random 1.4 million cards that get graded every month go to, these are the types of places. They do show a picture here where you could see it says on the side of the box, PSA and Mints have no affiliation. This product is graded by PSA and resold by Mints. So Mints appears to be the parent company of this, and I did not reference the Sports Card Radio, and I think Dan the Card Man did a video on this too, to remember the specifics if that was the company that was linked back to all of this nonsense. But regardless, I'm not so much focused on the company for this in this case, just more the yikes factor of ripping this. And the buyer beware. If you're going to play the repack game, and what I mean by play it, I mean buy into them, you have got to do your due diligence on who the seller is and what are the parameters that you are getting yourself into. This is a perfect example of a bad repack. I know some people in the comments will say all repacks are bad. I have never bought into a repack before in my life. So it is just not a thing that I have chosen to do. I don't plan on it anytime soon. I am not that desperate to scratch that itch. But if you're going to, and I know clearly a lot of people like them because it is big business, make sure you buy into one that A, has at least some sort of confirmed chase card, B, has a checklist so you know exactly what your floor and ceiling is on it. This just seems like the perfect, if you ever wanted to, and listen, it's cute to say, you know, regulations coming to the hobby and all this and that. I just feel like in all reality, the government has enough problems on their hands just to manage the country. I don't know that I actually see regulation coming to the hobby anytime soon. I don't know if we want it or not. That's a video for another day. I don't know that we actually get it. But if you were going to present the case on why we need it, this would be like Exhibit A, maybe Exhibit B in why this stuff needs to be looked at, because this is an absolute travesty that you could get smoked this bad in something like this. Now, I guess if you want to play devil's advocate, like I mentioned earlier, how many people are ripping a $900 box of Optic and getting $200 worth of cards out of it as well? The difference there is, and especially comparing that to this, at least that you know potentially, even if at long odds, what could be in that box. You have a checklist, you have odds. Well, I guess you don't have odds with Panini potentially, but you at least have a checklist. You know when you open that box, there is some percentage chance of getting a CJ Stroud downtown, or an Optic Hollow, or downtown of another player, or one of the other short print inserts, or, you know, whatever. you know what you are getting yourself into when you buy a hobby box of Donruss Optic. On something like this, throwing $800 into this vending machine, you are clueless. You have no idea. You are literally getting a straight mystery. Most repacks, not all, a lot of the ones, at least the ones online that a lot of the breakers sell, do have a checklist. Not all of them, some of them do, or at least you have an idea of, they'll at least give you the numbers, and I'm sure the numbers are a little fugazi, but they will give you a, here's what the chaser amount is. Let's call it $10,000. Your floor value is a couple $100, and the average is X price. So you at least know some information, even if it's not 100% accurate, but you at least have some idea of what you're potentially getting into. With this, completely blind. You have absolutely zero clue, unless something's changed. Maybe something's changed, but last reports that I had heard, there was no checklist or anything on this machine, nothing that you could access inside the system to see that, which would make sense because they're just going to load it back up when it gets low. And, you know, how are you supposed to guarantee that a chaser's still in there and keeping it random? You'd have to basically load the machine up with a 500 card checklist or whatever you wanted to put in there, let it run completely dry, and then reload it. And I'm guessing that's not what's happening here. So just be careful out there, whether you're playing with fire on this thing or buying into a repack elsewhere. Just ultimately buy the card that you want. I get it. I like to rip wax on occasion too. I guess a repack is one step aside from that, but there's just a lot of shenanigans that could go on. So you got to be really careful out there. I mean, this is basically like ripping the hobby box. You know, like we've talked about in the past a ton on this channel. A lot of the appeal, I believe, to the repack is the rip experience. The way that you feel after you open a repack feels better than ripping a hobby box. In this case, that is not true. But this is not the best way to run one of these things to keep a customer coming back. Like, who's going to drop $800 on this thing, get this result, and be like, you know what? Let's do that again. I don't think so. You burn people this badly, and this is, you know, you're not going to get returning customers to this thing because this isn't a feel good either. You know, if you buy into one of the larger repacks that exist out there, like I said, maybe you get a Hall of Fame patch auto card of Dan Marino. It's less than the price of the buy-in, but the fact that you got a cool card at the end of it makes you feel better about it, even if the value is not necessarily there. And you cannot deny the power of the repack given how much inventory they are gobbling up for this type of stuff. This is a really bad example of one, but got to be careful out there. Stay away from the vending machine ones is all I can tell you. Stay away from repacks in general, but the vending machine ones specifically, run from if you see one. Curious for your thoughts and comments down below. Go find yourself some Cam Reddish base PSA 10s because the repackers are a buy-in, I guess. That's all I got. Peace.